Last time we ended on a line I haven't stopped thinking about. The perimeter came back, and the perimeter is now a person reading a screen. So today we finish that thought because there's an obvious next question almost nobody asks out loud. If the attackers moved off the code and onto the humans, who defends the humans? And the answer surprised me. It isn't a company. It's 31 volunteers, a Telegram bot, and a legal document giving strangers permission to break into your protocol in order to save it. And someone who watches this channel worked that out before I did, in one sentence, in a comment. We'll get to her. So let's start with the biggest DeFi hack of this year. April 1st. Drift Protocol, the largest perpetuals exchange on Solana, $285 million, gone in about 12 minutes. But the break-in didn't start in April. It started the previous autumn at a conference. A group turns up presenting themselves as a quantitative trading firm. They meet the Drift team face-to-face at industry events in more than one country over roughly 6 months. And then they deposit over $1 million of their own money into the protocol to buy credibility. They paid in advance to be trusted. Then the quiet one. On March 27th, Drift moved its security council to a configuration with zero time lock. TRM Labs put it perfectly. That migration eliminated the delay that would have allowed detection and intervention. The alarm wasn't defeated. It was switched off by the people who owned it as routine housekeeping. And here's the line from TRM's own write-up this whole video hangs on. The critical vulnerability was not a smart contract bug, and it isn't new. Last June, the Justice Department charged 4 North Korean nationals. One had been hired by a blockchain company in Atlanta on a stolen identity, and 15 months later allegedly stole about $740,000 by modifying the source code of 2 of his employer's smart contracts. He didn't break the contract. He was writing it. Although it doesn't always work, Venus Protocol caught the same species of attack last September, 18 hours early, because they'd switched on monitoring a month before, and every dollar was back within 12 hours. So who's on the other side of that? August 2022, the Nomad Bridge. A bug goes live, so easy to exploit that ordinary people just join in. Over 300 addresses walk off with $186 million. And here's the horrible part. There were white hats watching who could have drained that bridge protectively, taking the money in order to give it back. They didn't, because nobody's lawyer had said yes. One of the researchers watching goes by Samson, one word, lowercase. That's how he asks to be called. And he asks the question that starts everything. How did we get to a point where random people felt comfortable stealing money from the bridge, but white hats felt it was too risky to intervene? That October, a small group starts meeting. They work in secret for 16 months, and in February 2024, they reveal what they've built, the Security Alliance. Not a startup, a registered nonprofit. The hotline is the part I love. It's called SEAL 911, and it's functionally a Telegram bot. If your protocol is on fire right now, you message it. Their own numbers today: over 3,300 tickets, 125 war rooms, more than $180 million rescued by 31 volunteers. Then the legal piece, and this is the clever bit. It's called Safe Harbor, and it gives you permission to act while the theft is happening, rather than paying you for a report afterwards. Protocols adopt it by publishing a transaction on-chain. I counted 19 on Ethereum, Uniswap, and Aave and ENS among them. And Uniswap's own governance proposal says the quiet part out loud. Uniswap, by design, has no pause function. It cannot be halted in an exploit. So its token holders voted to hand anonymous strangers the right to intervene instead. A protocol worth billions deciding, formally, that its last line of defense is other people's goodwill. Does it work? November 3rd last year. balancer is being drained. And a completely different protocol, stake-wise, not under attack, nothing at stake for them, spend 12 hours quietly building a rescue. They fail twice because the thief keeps landing first. Third attempt, it goes through. $20 million handed back to strangers. Now I owe you the other side, because volunteers with a phone number can't be the whole answer. There's a far more rigorous approach with the opposite instinct. Don't trust people, prove the code. It's called formal verification. And here's the cleanest way I can put it. Normal testing is you trying a lot of inputs and checking nothing exploded. Formal verification is a mathematical proof covering every possible input at once. Not the ones you thought of, all of them. And this isn't theoretical. The Ethereum deposit contract, the one-way door every validator's stake goes through, was formally verified in a peer-reviewed paper back in 2020. And my favorite detail is how they found a real bug in it. Not by reading it. They found it because the proof refused to close. The maths wouldn't finish. And that's what pointed at the flaw. So, problem solved? No. A proof only shows the code matches the specification you wrote. If the spec says the wrong thing, you get a beautifully verified mistake. And a proof about your contract says precisely nothing about a stolen laptop. And there's a 4-year study out in June that puts a number on that. Private key compromise, phishing, and social engineering account for about half of all the money actually lost, while making up a negligible share of what audits report. Now, the author is careful, and so am I. Those are two different populations, not a scoreboard. But read together, the picture is unmistakable. The industry's inspection is pointed at the code, and about half the losses walk in through the door marked people. Okay, this section exists because of one person, and I want to name her properly. A viewer here, moretolovexx, has been asking the question underneath the story for months. A little while back, she mentioned she's looking at going into cybersecurity with a blockchain focus, and then, in the same breath, that she doesn't have a technical background, only what she called discernment, knowing when something is genuine. And then she said the thing this entire video is built on. She asked about community as the firewall versus code as the firewall. That's not my framing, that's hers. Sections 2 and 3 are literally her sentence, split in half. So thank you, genuinely. Now let me answer her properly. And rather than cheerlead, I'll let an employer say it. TRM Labs is one of the biggest blockchain intelligence firms in the world. And in their own job listings, live right now, is a line I had to read twice. Crypto experience is a plus, not a requirement. We teach on-chain tradecraft. We cannot teach the targeter's instinct. Sit with the shape of that. The technical part is the half they can teach you. The instinct, the judgment, the nose for when something is off, is the half they can't. So when she says all she has is discernment, she's describing the scarce ingredient, not the missing one. And this field is full of people who came in sideways. Taylor Monahan went to film school and studied broadcast journalism. She now does security at MetaMask and is one of the most respected North Korea researchers working today. I won't pretend all of it is easy. The competitive bug hunting platforms are a power law, not a salary. But that's a bad first rung, not a closed door. So here's a better one. Cypher Updraft has a free course called Blockchain Basics, about 3 hours, no sign-up wall, and the site itself labels it a non-technical foundation course. After that, a thing called Ethernaut, which is 41 hacking puzzles that genuinely play like a game. That's a real path. It starts this week, it costs nothing, and it begins with the half she already has. So where does this go? Because something happened 8 weeks ago that I think settles the argument. Zcash. A researcher named Taylor Hornby is reviewing the cryptography behind Zcash's private transactions, using AI-assisted auditing alongside ordinary research methods. And on May 29th, he finds it. An under-constrained elliptic curve multiplication. In plain terms, a step in the maths that was supposed to be checked and wasn't quite. He writes a complete working exploit, and in a test environment, it generates unlimited, undetectable counterfeit Zcash. And that flaw had been live since May 2022, 4 years, through repeated review by professional cryptographers. And then the line that genuinely unsettled me. Because those transactions are private by design, they hide their own inputs. So the disclosure says plainly, there is no way to cryptographically prove whether the vulnerability was ever exploited before it was fixed. Not, we checked and it's fine. There is no checking. No evidence of exploitation is not the same as evidence it never happened. It was fixed within days, and Zcash's own people published all of this themselves. That's the system working. Now hold that next to what else showed up this summer. On July 1st, researchers documented what they believe is the first genuinely agentic ransomware, malware that reasons for itself. It hunted specifically for crypto wallets and seed phrases and went from a failed login to a working fix in 31 seconds. And then it threw away its own encryption key, so victims couldn't have decrypted their files even if they'd paid. And the Bitcoin address it demanded ransom to? It's the example address out of the Bitcoin developer documentation. It copied the textbook. So look at those two side by side because this is the answer. Same technology. Pointed at a hard problem by a careful human, it found a 4-year-old flaw the best cryptographers in the world had walked past. Pointed at nothing in particular, it produced ransomware that locked out its own operator. The difference wasn't capability, it was aim. And aim is a human property. So let's put her question back together, because I think it has an answer now. Code as the firewall is real. You can genuinely prove a contract correct, and when the proof won't close, it hands you the bug. But it only ever covers the code. And about half the money that actually disappears never touches the code. It walks in through a hiring process, a conference handshake, a laptop, a settings change nobody questioned. Which is why the other half of the answer is 31 volunteers and a Telegram bot, and a protocol worth billions writing down in public that its last line of defense is strangers who agreed to help. So it was never code or community. Code is the firewall you build. Community is the firewall you join. And that distinction matters because only one of them has a door in it for you. So, one thing to actually do, and it costs nothing. Seal 911 is free, 24 hours a day, and open to anyone. The handle is in the description. And their own documentation has a trick worth knowing, even if you never need them. If you're ever in a crisis and someone offers to help, share an unguessable keyword sentence with them. Then open a ticket with the bot and ask the responder to repeat that keyword back. 30 seconds, no code, no wallet, and it tells you whether you're talking to a real responder or the attacker. Full research and every source is linked below. Thanks for watching.